Hello, welcome back to Book and Page. We are on to video number 3 for Aristophanes the Wasps. And it's not wasps we have to deal with today, but dogs. You ready for some mockery? Yeah, let's do the quick summary first. So we've just finished with Filio and Deli, deciding that Filio should not go back to court. The problem is, as we start this scene, he kind of still wants to. Deli asks if he can ask his father for one thing, and Filio still says, just don't ask me not to go back to court. Instead, we actually get an offer of holding court at home. Why not? And Deli is willing to tell Filio exactly why this is a good idea. He'll be able to eat what he wants. He'll be able to judge his own household. And he'll still get paid in the correct change. So after hearing all of these good reasons why he should just hold court at home, Filio does in fact agree. Cue just the farce that is this courtroom. Deli actually goes running around the house with his servants to find everything they need to sort of set up a mock courtroom. And Filio gets involved in this too, to the point where he apparently defaces the family shrine in order to get the defense could be called to the bar. And this gets even better when it turns out the first accused of the household is one of the dogs. It turns out the dog, well, he ate some cheese. Deli says, great, he could be the first trial. And he asks the servant Zan, who's told him about this eating of the cheese moment, to serve as the prosecution. And Zan actually says the other dog wants to do it. Great! Perfect! So, we call the dogs to court. And then the prosecuting dog talks. So I think we can safely assume this is not, in fact, dogs on the stage. Well, one of them might be, because we only get the prosecuting dog talking. So I think we have to assume that that is like a person dressed up as a dog, who then prosecutes the other dog. And the main complaint is not that he stole the cheese; it's that he didn't share the stolen cheese with the other dog. So then the dog who is accused is called to the stand, but he gets tongue-tied. He can't talk. So he might actually be a dog. I don't know. And Deli steps forward to serve as the defense, claiming that he's a good dog. He does a lot of good things for the household, including protecting them from wolves. And then he brings out just the family of puppies to whimper and whine around Filio's feet. Just look at his family! And that's why I had to stop there, because just, why? Why? Like, this has gotta be just the weirdest concept. And I've seen some weird plays, right? Like, I've seen Bacchus convince a dude that he's a bull, and then convince the dude to dress up like a woman, and then convince the dude's mother to rip him to pieces. I have seen a man turn people into dogs and monkeys. I've seen my cat appear because I'm talking to a camera. Excellent. Coolio, you come over here and not touch my camera, please. So, why is this so weird? we've established that at least one of these dogs has to, in fact, be a person in a costume. But this is fairly common when it comes to things on stage. Just look at the Broadway version of The Lion King. That is not actual lions. That is people dressed up in animal costumes and lion costumes. So, it's not the animal part that's weird. Except it kind of is. Because we're supposed to be in a semi-realistic realm here, or at least we think we are. Because while the rest of the court people that we end up meeting are dressed up like wasps, that's a joke off of the constant buzzing they make, right? Where they're constantly muttering with each other in courts and judging people. It doesn't seem like that was supposed to be sort of making these animals more human or making these humans more animalistic. And then we get this talking dog, and you're just kind of like, I'm no longer sure how I should be viewing this. Unless we're sort of half in the position of Filio here. Because Filio seems to constantly be tricked into these things and viewing things incorrectly. And we get a very clear moment of this at an odd point, which is we need to have sort of this courtroom shrine where we give thanks to this specific person. And Filio says we don't have this shrine, and Deli says, well, it's right over there. And he points to the stage shrine, keeping in mind that this is a festival usually for Dionysus. So there is a shrine on the stage. And then one of the servants comes in and acts like the statue. And that is a servant acting. And Filio goes, oh, hey, didn't see you there before. He doesn't have all the correct equipment today, but that's fine. So maybe we're sort of in that position where suddenly this dog, well, is never meant to be, in fact, a dog. It is somebody acting purely for this performance for Filio of the court. And that's kind of weird, because Deli has also then in this moment portrayed knowledge of the fact that all of this is a performance, because he has in fact pointed towards the stage shrine, which as a character he shouldn't be able to do, but as an actor he could. And it's suddenly this question of how deep into this are we actually? Because at first we think we're watching a play, so we need to suspend disbelief, not to see the actors, but to see these characters. And then we get sort of this performance within the play of this courtroom. And we have even a deeper layer, which is then Filio's belief in this courtroom. Which sometimes isn't fully there. Because he recognizes when things are missing, and he recognizes at points when he's been handed something different. For example, he mentions the urns. And the urns, if I have this correct, the urns should be basically where you're dropping your vote. But I could be incorrect about that. I could be thinking about the voting system and not the court system. But he has this idea that we don't have urns. And his son points to some ladles he set on the table and he says, that's why I have these. And they're obviously not urns. And the guy's like, cool, that will work. Yet he somehow accepts this random stage shrine with this random servant acting like a statue as the correct courtroom shrine. And even he goes about finding the bits and pieces he needs. So he seems to be aware at some points that this is imaginative. It is a play of a courtroom to him. I'm not sure he then realizes it's a play fully. I'm not even sure Deli is aware that it's a play fully. But there is that cross moment where he's referring to something on stage that should be invisible to the character. And you're kind of like, where are we? What is happening here? Are we in fact viewing actors who aren't acting? Who are acting, but it's on different layers? Is this such a potent commentary on the courtroom that we can't even have the actors suspend disbelief? We need to have that immediacy and that one small moment that says, we're not playing. We are, but we're not. Because overall, the performance of the court here is really weird. Because you think, prior to this point, that Deli's problem is with his father going to court. And that doesn't seem to be it now. Because Deli is, well, not even just willing, but encouraging his father to perform as though he is at the court in the house. And this has got to be actually more disruptive to the household than the father simply going off to court every day. What's the concern then? Is it actually being involved in politics? Is playing at being on the jury fine as long as you're not actually having an effect on anything? Is his concern for his father's health? And that's why he said things like, well, you could eat anytime, you can use the bathroom anytime, which the Filio does in this scene, like straight up just uses the washroom in the middle of court. You can sleep in. You don't have to go super early in the morning. So is it a concern for the father's health? Well, if that's true, then it's concern on a physical level, because I don't think we're helping him mentally by playing into this fantasy then. Because we know Filio is into it far too deep. When the dogs come out, the punishment that the other dogs suggest is a collar. And then Filio says, no, if found guilty, punishment is death. And you're kind of like, this is a dog that ate some cheese. Like, calm down. This is not the end of the world. So maybe, again, by playing into these ideas of power, Deli is actually trying to protect the city from his father. But that's just really weird. It's kind of uncomfortable to think that way. Because it kind of says people can't learn at these points. That you can't change how a person views the court system, so you just have to stick them into a place where they can play out this fantasy without hurting anybody. Why then does that make me uncomfortable? Well, part of that again is also people not being able to learn. You like to think that people are reasonable enough that you could correct them about the court system, and they'll learn and become better citizens and better jurors. On the other side, even with playing out these fantasies, there has to be some reflection. And this is really interesting when taken in the context of today, because we have 1,001 ways to play out our own fantasies. Not only do we have something like theater, we have movies, we have books, and most especially now we have video games, which gives us even more control over these fantastical elements. A lot of people have even pointed to video games as sort of that fantasy release. You can't do in real life what you do in video games, but that's okay because you probably shouldn't. And I think that's the difference here. You can play a shoot 'em up and recognize this isn't something you should do in life, right? And for most people, it's probably something you can't, like you don't have the equipment, but it's also, you recognize this isn't something you should do. And I think Undertale really helps, like, present this. The genocide run, right? You know this isn't something you should do. But at first you think it's harmless, and then the game starts to show you that there are consequences there, even in the video game world. And you learn from that. Well, it becomes a question now of what Filio is learning. This play situation should be a learning experience. And, like, that's what you use your imagination for. You read books and learn from them because you can't experience everything that's happening, right? Leave that alone, cat. But you can experience through the eyes of the person in the book and learn. But that doesn't seem to be happening here. Filio seems stagnant, and Deli seems to be giving him everything that he wants in that situation. Will you leave that alone? And this is me trying not to let my cat have everything she wants in this situation. What I mean is, Deli's not putting his foot down when Filio is acting out. He doesn't tell his father off for defacing the house shrine. He asks, like, isn't that blasphemous? And then his father's just like, do, and the subject is dropped. That's a problem. Deli doesn't correct his father when his father turns around and says, punishment is death. Calm down. No, someone should be stepping in and trying to change these moments, because giving into this power fantasy fully is just somehow convincing Filio that this is right. And Deli is helping with this. He's not only providing all the tools, but he's providing the bits of power fantasy that Filio really liked. He brings the puppies in. Well, Filio, at the start of the play, told us one of his favorite moments is when they parade the kids around weeping and crying. It just makes him feel like such a bigger person because he has control not only over the life of the accused, but also his innocent family. This is a farcical moment. It's supposed to be funny because suddenly all these puppies are here and they've got the puppy eyes and they're whimpering and whining. And we've all seen puppies like this where you just want to pick them up and cuddle them, and it's supposed to be funny, but the context is concerning. We're not correcting anything of the problem here. We're just letting it exist in some place where we view it as harmless for the majority, for the society, but is causing probably a lot more damage to the individual. And maybe even his household. Like, no work is getting done today while we hold court for the dogs. I'm a little concerned. I also want to hug the puppies. Ooh. Ooh, man. Ooh. This is what happens with Aristophanes. He pulls you in and then points out that in a lot of ways you're just as guilty as your characters. And again, maybe that's why Delhi is more aware that this is a performance altogether. Whew. Well, I'm going to keep reading. I definitely want to see where this scene is going. So, like I said, I'm going to get reading, and I hope you do too. See you next time.